Welcome back to another episode of the PokeStop podcast. I'm your host, Zach Pra, as always, joined by my co-host, Thad Wayne. Thad, how you doing today?
You know, Zach, doing just fine.
Thad, today's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful day. It is. We're actually recording this on the 27th, and Live has officially updated over to Journey Together. So officially now we are in the post-rotation universe. V's are gone. All the things are gone.
All my favorite cards
it's
are
a
gone.
brave new world. You know, there's no more Luminions, no more Rotoms, like no more Forest Sealstone, no more trekking shoes, no more PokeStop. R.I.P. to the GOAT. I'm pouring one out every day. I literally already missed that card. Like, oh my god, I love that card so much. No more Switch Cart. No more Snorlax. Not crying about that card being gone at all. I know you personally love control decks, so I know you're really beat up about it.
It was my favorite matchup to go into for sure.
Yeah, I think everyone loves playing against control decks. You know, I played. I think were you also in the Limitless tournament tonight? Because I did a.
I was.
I did a Limitless tournament tonight. Went 1-2 drop with Archaladon, which is not a deck people expected me to bring to the tournament.
I went 2-2 drop, so not much better.
Phenomenal. Yeah, my losses were I played a Spathra Xatu, which just had no idea how to do that. And I feel like that matchup is like super unfavored for Archaladon because they just like make you use extra energy that like you're not designed to need. And you don't really have a way to ramp like the extra energy that you need. So it just makes that matchup like so tough for the Archaladon. I also lost to the End Zoroark box, where I didn't get a Duraludon down till like turn 2 or turn 3. So it was just like I was always a turn behind, and like that ended up being the one turn I needed to not be behind. I basically ended up losing by like one prize. So
it's not too bad.
Life happens, but honestly, I really enjoy this format so far. It seems way less Budu heavy as the Prismatic and Surging Sparks formats were.
Just Prismatic, because that's when Budu came out.
That is true. Budu did not come out in Surging Sparks, but just like I actually really enjoyed the Surging Sparks format. Definitely Prismatic just felt very bad. I think both of us kind of had like the same opinion that like it just kind of sucks and there's not really a point to grind it, because also both of us like didn't have any regionals we were going to, had no like major events we were both attending, so like it was kind of just like a dead format on arrival.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like Prismatic was actually kind of good. All the tournaments I went to, I managed to place.
Yeah, I mean, Lugia had like
Lugia. Yeah, Lugia just didn't care about Budu at all.
Yeah, and you had like it actually felt really nice for like the Lugia players because y'all got like one last ride, whereas like Reggie Drago was just like, no, you're actually unplayable right now.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice. You know, I took Lugia to locals the other night, did pretty well with it, went 3-1. Lost the game I was supposed to lose in, you know, against Miraidon. That's tough kicks, but it is what it is. Winning the matchup is I mean, I made it close. I was within one prize card, so it was pretty close. Just came down to me sticking a boss, and it just didn't stick.
Yeah, for sure.
So stuff like that sucks. But it was nice. You know, hard to see it go. Now I'm kind of like deckless. I have like no home for my like. I'm like,
you don't know where to
I don't
go.
know where. Yeah, I'm like, damn. Like Lugia was always my like. I know how to run that deck forwards and backwards. I played it for 3 years.
Yeah, that's like
now I need to find another 3-year deck.
Yeah, like I feel the same way with Bolt, because like even though Bolt is still very much in the format, it very much changes the way it operates. Like you switch from a hyper aggro, like foot on the gas, do not take it off unless you have 6 prizes on the board. Like unless you're going to win this turn, you do not take your foot off the gas with Bolt. Whereas now it feels more like Palkia when you have like this like big Noctowl engine, and like you have to kind of be more methodical and be like, okay, I need to grab resources for now and then maybe resources for later, and being able to like string these Noctowls turn after turn to prevent, Bolt from just bricking. It's been challenging. I'll be honest. It's been more challenging than I thought it would be. Which is
it feels very Terra boxy without all the wide range of attackers.
Terra's without water
Yeah.
pond.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, like that water pond. I think like best attacker in the format right now is the water ogre pond. Like I don't even know if there's an argument. Like there's just
the
so
only other
much like stage 1 stuff where like a water ogre pond just wreaks havoc.
Yeah, I mean, like the only deck that even somewhat, I guess the only card that somewhat comes close is like just Dragapult.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Just being
Dragon
able
Ball
to
also
like
the same kind of idea. Like you're really able to like manipulate the prize trade, especially with like Dusknoir in that deck. And like
Yep.
there's just so much that deck can do, which is honestly really cool. But Thad, we both this is coming out on the 28th. We both are attending a 3K on the 29th. And I think both of us are kind of losing our shit a little bit right now. We're just like, I think for most people watching this, you got Atlanta Regionals coming up in about 2 weeks. We've got the 3K we're going to. There's another 1K in Michigan I might go to, just kind of depending on like availability. I don't know. It kind of depends like how I feel about the format and like how good do I expect people to be at that tournament. You know what I mean? Because like if it's just like the same caliber of like a limitless tournament, I'm better off just playing in a limitless tournament until like 5 a.m. Honestly,
that's true.
Then like spending like probably $100-$150 it would take to like attend and travel to a 1K in a different state. But I'm like, what are the top 3 decks you're expecting at the 3K?
For me, 3K, I mean, I'm kind of looking around and going off the Limitless tournament we just played in, there's just a lot of random crap. I
saw that.
Crazy.
The top deck was Other.
Yeah, dude, there's just so much
insane,
crap out
and it
there.
was really funny. I went to the first list on the Other, and it was a Lugia deck.
Like Lugia EX?
No. Like some dude didn't realize he can't play Vs anymore. He just built he just took your Lugia 60 and submitted that as a list. And got he got 0-1 dropped. Because like his opponent, I'm sure his opponent was like, Judge, this is not legal. Like I don't
exactly
know what to
I
tell
would
you.
do.
Yeah, so that was
really
funny.
I mean, like, I mean, for me, like top 3 is obviously in no particular order. I think going to be Terrabox, Archaludon, Pult.
Dragapult?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Bolt, I think is just outside the top 3 right now.
Yeah, I think so. This format, like right now, it feels so weird for me just because like there's not a really good turbo deck, I feel like. I think the best one is probably Bolt. And like I think that just needs to get solved by someone. And I'm sure like following like Atlanta and probably even more so after Madison, I think we'll have a lot more information about like the best. Like I think someone's going to find a way, and like they're gonna find the right counts and the right consistency that just makes this deck feel absolutely insane. And I'm personally so ready for it.
There's a chance that just doesn't happen.
There is, for sure. I just don't think it will. I think like someone somewhere has the 60. And there's way to cash in at a regional.
Yeah.
It's especially nice that like the 2 regionals coming up, we have Atlanta and Madison, which I think will be pretty heavily attended regionals. I know Madison had like some attendance cap problems, and I think the TO is like working with the venue or with Pokemon or some combination of people are having conversations to try and make that better. But yeah, it is really crazy. Yeah. Here are the top 5 decks from the Limitless tournament we played in tonight, which had, I believe, over 170 people. No, it was like 140 something, but still a very big tournament. Outside of other, it was Terrabox, Archaludon, Dragapult, Raging Bolt, and then Fear Alligator.
Dude, that
Which
for alligator deck is actually super annoying.
that seems to be the name of the game with Fear Alligator. Yeah, it just seems to be very grindy and like honestly, just it feels more like a control deck than like a like an attacking deck, if that makes sense.
It's a control deck in every possible way, other than like the fact that it just doesn't have any good energy acceleration. I think that's like the biggest pitfall because they can only put one energy down a turn.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other acceleration. So if you can like just chase wherever the energy is, you can always put them like a turn behind. But if you let them like build up energy on you, it's so bad. Like you gotta take their drops out, which sucks. But the deck is really, I think it's really good. I think there's a lot of validity to it. I would consider playing it. It's so good.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
hate it, but it's good.
just a deck that requires a lot of time to be put in.
Oh, 100%.
So I think once you figure that out, it's actually going to be really good. I just don't know if I want to put the time in. Honestly, it's kind of like where I'm at.
I definitely don't.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I think that's just like I'm good deck. Like I understand why it's good. Like I had the same opinion with like Lost Box and like Ancient Box and like these other like one prize attacking decks. Like I'm just like I get why you're good. I just don't want to be good with you. Like we can agree you're good and I don't have to play it.
100%.
One deck, honestly, I'm kind of surprised isn't on people's radars is Gardevoir. Like I feel like that deck, if you know how to play the deck well, is super strong.
I think you just have to find the right mixture of supporters. I think that's the deck's biggest downfall so far, at least in my testing. We were testing with some friends, and it performed pretty well. Like not the games I played with it, the games people played into me, they did really well with it. But I don't know. I think it's really good.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that deck is really good, and it just needs the right person to like figure it out. And like, I think we all know Henry Chow's gonna do it. Like, is that just like a foregone conclusion at this point?
100%.
Like, he just seems.
I think the only. It has some early game consistency problems, though, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no Curlia. I mean, no trade ability. I've seen people like throwing in Zoroark into it, which I think is crazy.
I don't think it's that good. Yeah, that's just too many support evolutions happening at once. Like you're building up stage 1s, and then you're building up a stage 2, and the stage 1 is a 2 prize. It's not like Curlia that naturally fits in the deck. Like I don't think that's the way.
It's a 2 energy retreat cost. So you're just asking to get trapped.
Yeah. And switching isn't really a thing right now. So like are you gonna run a bunch of switch cards in a deck that doesn't really have space for it already?
The list that I saw played 1 switch, 1 Turo.
Yeah, you're trying to get trapped. Like you're just trying to get trapped.
Yeah, and I was like, that's crazy. But
you're trying to get trapped and get milled. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not as good. It's definitely not good. Your problem is the early game. Mid game you start making your comeback. End game you basically checkmate people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that just I don't know about that one. That one just I don't know. But Thad, the one thing we did want to do for this episode was pop out a tier list, and I am excited to do that. We are going to tier list. I think we have like a 12 or 13 decks we're going to talk about and kind of give our thoughts and where we're kind of leaning with these decks and where we think they kind of fit into the meta more or less. The first deck we have here is the Archaludon with the Hops engine. So the Hops Double, the Hopsation, Hops Cramorant, Hops Snorlax.
C tier.
I just don't think this is the best Archaludon deck.
It's not
Like,
only not the best Archaludon, it's not even like what are you really beating? Because it has a super like thin energy count. Like you're
yeah,
doing a lot at once. How are you getting those in the discard? There's like what most of those lists only play like one or two research.
I think something like
I
that.
don't like
Yeah.
it.
I'm also not a huge fan. I just don't think it really works. To be
No,
fully honest with you, like I I think you just play Archaludon the way it's supposed to be played, you know, and
yep,
it'll
big,
reward you.
bulky, annoying.
Yeah, like you're just a big tanky 300 HP guy. Just be a big tanky 300 HP guy. But moving on, but staying in the metal type, we have Goldango with the Dudunsparce engines. And I think this deck is actually really good, but just gets absolutely folded by Terravox.
Well, yeah. Nah, I would say maybe A or B tier. It's really good. I think it has a lot of upside. Being able to play the Dunsparce CX feels good,
Yeah,
especially if you don't need the energy drop every turn.
yeah,
You
100%.
can like you can use that to like sort of counter your walls. But outside of that, I would say the Dingus is probably A or B tier.
Yeah, honestly, I think next format, this deck is way better. When you get
100%. I
Shaman
think
and
all
like
the
you can
Ethan
protect
stuff.
your Gimme Ghouls and um your Dunsparces, and you can like have that protection from Water Ogerpon, like, and it actually lets you play the game. I think it's way better.
Yeah,
But yeah, right now it's getting sniped out of the air. It just feels so bad.
setup decks don't feel great right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which is weird because like they also feel really good. Like it's so odd.
If you can get through if you can get through like your
If
opponent's
you can
second
evolve,
turn,
you're chilling.
yeah,
Like that's your biggest problem right now for sure. But up next, staying in Goldango, kind of a deck that's really weird and surprising it actually works is the Goldango Dragapult.
yeah.
I have yet to play or play against this deck, but I know you've tested a little bit against
B
this
tier
deck.
for
What do you
sure.
B tier?
Yeah, B tier for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's you run into some of the clunkiness of running a stage 2 with a stage 1 as your main attacker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can run into issues with energy attachments and accelerations. The ESP just feels bad. Like if you prize the ESP, you basically lose. You just become an infinitely worse Dragapult deck at that point.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's good, but meh, B tier.
fair enough. Yeah, I think if you're playing Goldango, just play the Dunsparces. Like that's just kind of like where I think this deck wants to be.
Yeah,
Up next is the
I agree.
Flareon deck. Uh, this deck is like I feel like this deck is very meta call-y. Like if you play this deck into the right meta, it could have a really good finish. But the wrong meta, and you're just gonna get absolutely cooked.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I'm not a huge fan, but I get why people like it.
Yeah, I think maybe, and this might be a deck that like as it's in the format longer, and someone like finds a way to figure this thing out, maybe it's better than it is. I think right now it's like, I think it's like a C tier, D tier deck at this point.
I agree. I agree.
I think it's like the bottom of C or the top of D, whichever way like that works for you. Up next, you have Gardevoir. I think this is an A tier deck.
Um,
I think it's low A, high B.
I would prefer it to be in B just because it does have high potential but low consistency.
That's fair. Yeah, I think once you figure out like your consistency and like you were saying earlier, once you figure out like your supporter line, I think this deck gets so much better.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. The first of the trainer decks we're looking at today is the Iono deck. The Iono's Belly Bolt with all those different electric types. I think this deck is garbage. I'm going to be fully honest right now. I think this deck sucks.
Is there a hell tier where it goes
Like,
below
I think
F
it's just
all
D
the way
tier.
down to hell?
Like, I'm sorry, but like this just seems like the worst of the trainers. You have less aura
100%.
than Hop, and I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah. I do want to throw something in here real quick, and I know this isn't on the tier list, and I know you're going to hate me for bringing this up. But Roaring Moon, I think, is really good right now.
No, pass. Moving on.
I'll prove it to you after the podcast.
That's fine. You know
but
what?
Continue.
How about this? You play it to the 3K on Saturday, and then we can talk about it.
Dude, I have it built. There's a good chance.
I know you.
I
There's
am
no way.
strongly considering it.
Whatever. I'm calling BS on that one.
Dude,
all right. Anyone going to 3K? Remember, Thad said he's playing Roaring Moon, so you hold.
No, there's a strong consideration for it.
What?
There's a strong consideration for it.
Oh my
Trust.
God, that's crazy. That's insanity. I'm moving right along with this. Mamoswine. I think this is another D tier deck.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
meme. It might be good
deck.
in like. It's a locals league challenge kind of deck.
Yeah, like it's a fun deck. It's not a good deck. Like,
yeah,
I get the appeal of it, but it's just not competitively viable in like a regional setting. Like, you're just not going to have fun, I feel like, if you play this deck.
fuck no.
But moving on, a deck that in previous formats was, top of the mountain, a deck that got top 4 at Worlds. It's won a few regionals. It won, I think it was Sacramento, is Miraidon EX. Miraidon went through a bit of a transformation. All right. You lost your V's, you lost your Raichu, you lost your Raikou, you lost Rotom, you lost Sealstone, you lost a lot of your consistency, some really strong attackers as well. But a deck that I think should still be on people's radar. I think you just got to figure out how this deck functions. And like, how do we hit the big numbers? And I know a lot of people have been throwing around like adding a Raging Bolt because you can kind of build that up, I guess.
Maybe.
And like comboing like a Magneton with like a Raging Bolt, like you can hit the big number one time, which like cool. I'm just not sure how viable that is, especially if like evolution decks are in your meta. Like if you have a lot of like Dragapults or Gardevoirs, like I don't know how you deal with that.
I mean, it's good because you have hands, and
that's true. Hands can do some work, but it's also like you're really relying on a lot without double turbo in the deck either anymore. It's just way harder to get that early hands down.
Yeah, you have to hit generator.
Yeah, like it makes whiffing generator actually atrocious now. And I think that will make a lot of people not want to play this deck.
I agree.
I'm going to put it in that like C tier.
Yeah. You can put it right next. It's right below Roaring Moon in like the turbo list.
It's weird. I don't see Roaring Moon on the tier list. That's crazy. Huh.
You might not.
That's weird. I guess we don't need it on the tier list because it's not that good.
It's 5-0 right now in that tournament.
Wow, it's 5-0 in a limitless tournament the first day of a format? Well, it must be the best deck ever. Oh my god. All right. Moving on. Speaking of giant stage 2 decks, Charizard Pidgeot. I have always felt Charizard is a card that will never be bad.
No. B tier for sure. It's always a B tier. At worst, it's B tier.
I don't know if it can ever go below B. Like, it's just always a decent pick because it's just so good. And it's just like figuring out how to play this deck.
It's always relevant.
Like, you have such a great ability. You have such a great attack. Quick search is so good. Like, it's just figuring out how to play this in a way that makes sense and is consistently able to win games.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to play quad candy.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it's just a good deck. It's a good deck. It'll always be a good deck. And nothing you can do about that.
Yeah, for sure. Up next, we have the other Charizard deck. The Charizard, Noctowls, Terapagos. This deck is really interesting. I think it's also a B tier deck, just because, like, the same kind of thing. You have Charizard, which has a really great ability, really great attack. You have Noctowl, you have Terapagos. You have a lot of different ways to do what you need to do in a game.
Yeah. I mean, good deck. I'm just not sold on its consistency or validity.
Yeah, and I just feel like if you're gonna play Charizard, just play Pidgeot Charizard. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
I just think Pidgeot's better, honestly, because
I
you
think
can grab
so. I
any
think so
one
too.
card you need.
It feels more streamlined, and your late game feels a little bit better because you can like just Toro up your board.
Yeah,
Whereas like the
for sure.
Terapagos is kind of always sticking in play, and
Yeah,
yeah,
for
no,
sure.
not in love with it.
Up next, the Ends deck, the Ends Zoroark with the Darmanitan with the Kyurem. This deck, I don't think is that good.
It could be B, potentially.
It could be. I think it right now is like in that C tier, which just feels like needs to be solved tier.
Yeah, it needs a regional under its belt tier.
Yeah, like it needs to be. It needs to someone to find out the skeleton, right? Like what's the core 55, and then we can deviate from there and figure out different techs, different ways to do things. Yeah, but right now I'm just not that sold in it. I remember when this was announced, I was like, this is not going to be as good as original Zoroark. And like, I think the hype of Zoroark GX carried this card farther than it should have, because like
100%.
the other thing too, Zoroark GX existed in a format where 120 was actually a really relevant amount of damage. And double colorless was in the format. Like it synergized way better than the End Zoroark seems to do.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, up next, the first deck that I think is in like the top echelon of this format is Dragapult with the Dusknors, with Budew, kind of like Dragapult as we've seen. And I think this deck was really good in Prismatic and gets better with the inclusion of Lily's Clefairy. Letting you really deal with like those Raging Bolts. The mirror becomes probably a lot more streamlined.
Yeah,
I think this
the
deck
Lily's
is just really strong.
It's good. I think it's really good. For me, it's got to be A or S tier.
I think it's S tier. I think it's earned its place in S tier.
It's like the meter stick for like how you determine if you have a good deck or not. Like,
yeah,
can you go 50-50 into this deck? If yes, play deck. If no, don't play deck.
100% agree with that. Absolutely. It's Dragapult. It's really good.
Yep.
Bring your calculator and you'll be chilling.
Make sure you have enough damage counter with you.
Yeah, literally. Up next, my boy, my king, my goat, Raging Bolt EX. I think this deck is A tier.
A tier, yeah. It only struggles with early game consistency. And
yeah, I think once
if
you figure out your early game, and I think this is like, it could be S tier, it could be B tier. Like, I think this deck also almost has that same issue of like the C tier decks where it just needs someone to figure out the core, the new skeleton. Like, because this deck has to transform. Like, you just can't you can't be the aggro deck anymore. Like you were in like Surging Sparks with like the inclusion of like PokeStop, Trekking Shoes, Switch Cart, all these different cards that let you just steam through your deck in like 2 turns. Like you just can't do that anymore. So you have to be a lot more methodical. And like figuring out your Noctowls, I think is the biggest thing. And just being able to like consistently chain your turns is going to be super important for the Raging Bolt decks going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe it's you. Maybe you're the one figuring it out.
Who knows? But moving on, we have Feraligatr. I think it's a B tier deck.
I think it's B tier, and I only give it B tier because, and I kind of glazed it a little bit in the beginning. I mean, it did win Champions League.
Yeah, like I think that I don't like to give a lot of weight to results from Japan. But I think it's kind of earned it a little bit.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, so I think this deck, we talked about it earlier. It's kind of control-y, but also like able to take prizes. So if you can figure out your consistency factor, this is a really strong deck in consideration for this format. Up next, though, we have Slowking. I did not think this deck is real. I still do not think this deck is real. I think it's a D tier. I think it's your locals deck. It's your fun deck. It's not a serious deck if you're going to a regional. And I get so annoyed when I go to regionals and I play people who just play meme decks. And I'm like, you spent $300 to play a meme deck. You could have played at locals for free.
Yeah, it's straight up.
It is like literally super tilting.
It's actually, it was really funny playing the other night at locals and absolutely demolishing back-to-back Slow Kings. I was like, maybe you guys shouldn't play this deck.
Maybe this isn't the one. Yeah, like it's just not that good.
No, and like it's a fun deck that bad players play. Like I hate to say it.
Yeah, I think it's the fun deck, right? It's the I don't want to think about competitive Pokemon tonight. I just want to have fun. You play Slowking, you play Mamoswine, you play decks like that.
Yep.
That's what you're doing. And it's fine. It is what it is.
I'm not here to win. I'm here to have fun.
Yeah, I'm not here to win. I'm just here to hang out. Like, that's why I'm playing Slowking. I really like the bottom tables. It's my favorite place to be. But up next, Terrabox. And
S tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's S tier. I think 1 and 2, I think right now is Terrabox Dragapult. Like, I think they're pretty even. I think they're neck and neck with each other. I think Terrabox has so many different attackers. You've got Pikachu to hit giant numbers. You've got the Wellspring Ogerpon to deal with setup Pokemon. You've got Teal Mask Ogerpon helping you with your consistency. Like, everything in this deck just works really well together. I think your one bad matchup is probably Walls, and I don't even think it's that bad. I think if you include like the Cornerstone Ogerpon and like a Fighting Energy, I think you're kind of chilling. Honestly, I think
I mean,
you're fine.
Walls feels bad, but I don't think you can judge like I don't know. I don't think you can judge like your entirety off of like your entire meta calculation based off of like maybe 10% of the meta. I don't know. It's a good deck. It's definitely S tier. I think it's a deck you have to at least go 50-50 into to consider playing the deck you want to play.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah, like it's a measuring stick for sure. Yeah, I think for this format, I mean the big measuring sticks. We'll get to the third one in my opinion at least. What the third measuring stick is going to be, but definitely the first two is Dragapult, Terrabox. Like if you can't 50-50 or better into this, you should not bring it.
I agree.
Like you're gonna at a regional, you're in 9 rounds, you're gonna play probably 2 to 3 of each of these.
Yeah.
So like if you're not down to beat them, I don't know if you should be bringing that one, brother. Up next, a deck that kind of popped off when it came out, but kind of vanished is Future Box. But I feel like Future Box always makes an appearance on like tier lists at the beginning of new formats because it is a really strong deck. It
Mm-hmm.
just always seems to have really bad matchups.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you really break it down, like, it's not theoretically, you could just go like 3-3,
Sure,
but you have to have like 3 crowns down and a
it takes a
booster
lot. It
capsule
definitely takes a
on
lot.
your hands to do what 20, 40, 60, 80 to do 200 damage. So you need to like take out two pricers,
Yeah, and
so
I think
3
also with
each.
V's being gone, I think the 200 is way less common than it used to be.
Plus, there's very few Pokemon weak to lightning right now that are
Yeah,
relevant.
it's pretty much just Squawk.
Squawk and Wellspring,
Cool. You beat Terrabox, I guess.
maybe.
You probably don't still. Yeah, the Pikachu just
Is
kind of eats you.
yeah, it's Pikachu.
Pikachu just eats your lunch and just says, "All right, you got your 3. Now take 3 more."
Yeah,
Well, I do 300, 300, 300, 300, 300. Yeah,
yeah. Pikachu just kind of dominates.
yeah, for sure. So definitely, like, again, if we're talking about playing this deck, do you beat Terrabox? Do you beat Dragapult? And if it's not that, then you shouldn't play the deck. I think this is a C tier deck. I think people, if someone can figure this deck out, it could be really strong. If you can figure out those 2 matchups, I
Yep,
think it could be really good.
I agree.
I just don't see it happening.
Me either.
Yeah. Up next, I think the third of the measuring stick decks is the Melodic Walls deck. I
I agree.
think
Yeah,
it is honestly, it feels like a low skill deck that you just kind of spin the wheel and just like
yeah.
hope you hit the right matchups. It feels very much like the new Quad Thorns. Like if you hit
It
the
very
right
much
matchups,
is.
you're chilling.
Yeah, I mean, like it feels like it is a deck that is designed to be more annoying than anything.
Yeah, and I just feel like most decks, like control decks, I feel like are really strong when no one's expecting control. And like
Yeah, and I think.
with
Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, just like with as prevalent as this deck was in Japan and like we see with all the city leagues, and like I actually played one tonight and I 6-0'd him with Archaludon. And like he made me eat 2 cornerstones. And I ate 2 cornerstones. Like you just don't really care. Like you're just like, okay, this is fine.
Nom nom nom. Yeah,
Yeah, literally. Like it's just like, all right, man, cool. This is
sure.
fun. Yeah. I think this deck, I think it's A tier. I don't want to put it in the um S tier, but I think it is A tier. I think it is a deck you have to be aware of. You have to know how to beat it.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, and the last deck on our tier list tonight, we have Archaludon, and I'm gonna put this as the kind of like a newer version of Archaludon that's coming out is the Archaludon with the Dunsparces with a lot of draw power, a lot of drawing a lot of cards every turn. Um, I think this deck is. I think it's A tier. I think it's like bottom of A, top of B kind of thing.
It feels very A tier. You kind of have an answer to everything.
Yeah,
Um, you don't really take any definitively bad matchups. It just feels like at times you're a card behind,
yeah,
like you're missing one piece.
for sure.
And I think it really just depends on your opening. If you can open like Squawk and into research kind of deal, sure, and you have
Yeah,
to go first.
yeah. I think it's like a
Um,
a deck that if you're drawing hot that day, it's a phenomenal deck, and it is going to be so good for you. Yeah, and I think
yeah, no,
it's
I mean,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
went on like a pretty hot run like earlier with it, like
Mhm.
just running the ladder. I
Yeah,
mean, I won like 8 straight before I like just bricked to some bullshit.
yeah,
But
yeah,
like just straight up, like just the draws were there. I was like, draw, Turo, keep drawing. Just
Yeah, for
get
sure.
rid of the damage, like monkey off the damage, pick it up, put another one down, and you just the cycle continues. It's a good deck. I think it's super solid right now.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I think this deck can be really strong. I think the one question mark with this deck is, can you hit big numbers? And I think that is the one downside of this deck is it really doesn't have a blow something up button. So like you have
No.
to be really tanky and you have to be almost like similar to like old like Gudra decks. And just the way that, like you have to be kind of tanky and you're gonna have a lot of picking up. The rigid band allows you to like resist a lot of damage and like deny a lot of knockouts and then Turo the damage off Penny or whatever you want to do. Um, so I think as long as you're able to do that and you're able to like find the cards at the right time, it could be really strong. And this deck also has an insane amount of gust. I think the main builds are playing like Prime Catcher and 3 Boss. I've considered adding maybe a counter catcher just for like that early game or maybe even late game. Like they're at 1 prize, you're at 2. Counter catcher Fez, kill it with the Arch Aladon, win the game.
Yeah. Also a strong consideration that I've thought about too.
Yeah, so this deck, I think it's pretty good. I think it is actually really good. I think it's just figuring out your consistency and the sequencing and figuring it out. I think a big thing too is knowing when to do your the Dunsparce draws.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely
Like
super
thinning.
strong.
Yeah, getting like cards out of the deck you don't want to see, getting
Yeah, for sure.
another Dunsparce down before you did Dunsparce.
Yeah, I think too in that like
Just those.
go ahead.
What are you gonna say?
I think like in like prepping for your late game, I think a lot of times just like double evolving to Dunsparce and attacking and being like, I'm gonna have these unless you deal with it, and then if you deal with it, you're not dealing with the active threat. So it's like
Yeah.
you kind of put them in like a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, and that can work really well for the Arch Aladon player.
And the Dunsparce having 140 HP is hella relevant.
It's super relevant. It makes it so that water pond can't touch you.
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good. Oh my god. It also makes it so like a lot of the hop decks with like a lot of their damage buffing, they can't hit 140 easily. Like it takes so much.
Well, they're never like they'll put 140. They'll like for some reason they always like put damage on a Dunsparce, thinking you're not
I
gonna
know.
evolve
I
and
don't
then
get it. Like
run
why
away
are
draw
you
it.
putting that here? It's going away in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
Like you don't think in this 12 card hand I have a Dunsparce? There's none in the
yeah.
discard.
The one thing I've actually thought about would be kind of sick in that deck is a Cypher Maniac.
Yeah, that would actually be kind of insane. Like
Low
Cypher to
top deck.
Dunsparce.
Yep, Cypher get another to Dunsparce, so like, or like Cypher into the counter catcher play.
Yeah, just
Counter catcher
Cypher
plus
into
energy.
whatever you need. Like whatever the combo is for that turn.
Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
I think a Cypher would be strong, but I don't know.
I absolutely agree. But Thad, that is our tier list. I think this is a good
Great
tier list. I think it's fair. I don't think we are unnecessarily unfair to any deck.
No.
But I'm honestly just very interested to see like where this format goes from here. Because honestly, this format, I think will either be really good or really bad. And I think it all really depends on how good the Terra Box deck is. Like I think if that deck is like unfair and just like punishing everyone, this could become a tier 0 format very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it will, but I think it is something to consider.
No, I mean it's definitely this format's gonna, run a pretty steady course. We have like 2 weeks until Atlanta.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, it's in I think 13 days technically, or it is 14 days.
Yeah, will be 14 days tomorrow, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I keep
So yeah, I
thinking
mean,
like
we
we're
were 2
already in
weeks.
April.
It's crazy. So I'm interested to see like sort of how online space translates to Atlanta,
Yeah, for sure.
and I'm excited to roll up with Roaring Moon and just show everybody how good that card is now.
Hey, Thad's work. If you want to pop that drug test now, it'd be a good time.
Yeah, they don't drug test there.
My man's smoking something strong, thinking Roaring Moon is good in 2025. That's insane.
I'll show you the way. I'll show
I
you the
would
way. But you can
gladly play that deck. Like, you know, I love me some Sada. So, like, if you got a Sada deck for me, I'm down.
let me take you to the light, brother.
I just don't think it's there. I think that light burned out a long time ago, but we will find out. But Thad, I want to thank you for joining me as always on PokeStop. This was our 10th episode. We are in double digits. We're officially a podcast, I guess.
Yeah,
I
you've
don't
been
know.
doing it for like 10 weeks.
I was weirdly on Twitter, and someone said like, "You're not a real podcast until you have 10 episodes," which was like, it was like a guy with like 50 followers, and I was like, "Who are you?" It was just really weird that I was pushed this random person who was like he's like a podcast bro. He's like one of these like I'm gonna make your business succeed while I also don't have a successful business and no track record of doing this.
I'm sure he's really good at math.
He's the best. He's actually the smartest. But in the meantime, this has been the PokeStop Podcast, episode number 10. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and let us know. Do you think our tier list is good? Is our tier list bad? But in the meantime, we will see y'all on the next one. Until then, have a wonderful day.
Later.